I am a university student, and to earn some extra money, I work as a delivery driver for a local pizza shop. The job isn't easy, but usually, it's not dangerous either. That night, like usual, I was riding my motorbike, ready to finish the last order and then head home to rest. It was almost midnight when I received a delivery request, the address being at a remote house outside of town. I felt uneasy about it since the location was isolated, with hardly any residents around, but I decided to complete the delivery anyway, as I had already made several that night and just needed this one last order to earn a decent tip. As I rode, the streetlights grew scarcer, and the road became more desolate. Finally, I arrived in front of the house. The atmosphere was eerie and naturally quiet, and I couldn't even hear the wind. I knocked on the door but got no response. I knocked again, harder this time, but still, there was no answer. Just as I was considering leaving, I heard faint footsteps behind the house. My heart tightened as I quickly turned around and saw a figure slowly moving along the edge of the woods. The figure was tall and moved stiffly, as though trying to stay hidden, but not completely blending into the darkness. A strong sense of dread washed over me. I knocked on the door again, this time much louder. Finally, the door cracked open, and a pale-faced middle-aged man stood there. He looked incredibly nervous, his eyes darting around, as if he was worried about something. I quickly handed him the pizza, hoping to leave this unsettling place as soon as possible. But as he took the pizza, I noticed a hand reaching out from the shadows behind him, seemingly trying to grab him. I shouted in alarm, but the man swiftly slammed the door shut with a heavy thud. I froze, my breath quick and shallow, the only sound I could hear. Suddenly, the figure from the woods appeared again, this time much closer to me. Slowly, he began walking towards me. My mind went blank, and all I could think of was getting away. I jumped onto my motorbike, frantically started the engine, and sped away from that creepy house. Back in town, my heartbeat finally began to slow down. The experience from that night still haunts me, and I have no idea what really happened in that house, nor do I dare to return and find out. After that incident, I quit my job, the ominous feeling of that midnight encounter lingering in my mind. I swore to myself that I would never deliver to such a remote place again. It was supposed to be the last delivery of the night for me. I was working at a pizzeria, and my boss handed me an order for a regular pizza with an address. It was 2009, and I didn't have a GPS on my phone, just an old flip phone, so I had to use a map book to find my way around. The street for the delivery was called Willows Road. I don't remember the house number or the name on the order, but I do recall struggling to find the place. It was in a rural area surrounded by woods and farmland, with no streetlights. After pulling over several times to check the map, I decided to call the number provided. The phone rang many times, and when it was finally answered, the voice on the other end was low, deep, and soft. The person gave me vague directions and mentioned that the driveway was easy to miss. I finally found the narrow dirt path and followed it slowly until a small one-story house came into view. There was a faint orange glow from one of the windows. I parked next to an old pickup truck, grabbed the pizzas, and walked to the front door. There was no doorbell, so I knocked. I heard music from inside, and then footsteps approached the door. After a few moments, the door creaked open, revealing just a sliver of someone's face, one eye peeking out. I nervously said, "You ordered the pizza, right?" The voice, which I recognized from the phone, confirmed it. There was an awkward pause before he said he needed to get the cash. He walked away, and I waited outside. The music from inside was old, from the 1930s, making the situation feel even more unsettling. The door slowly inched open further, allowing me to see into the dimly lit room. The furniture looked ancient, and the smell inside was horrible, like something decaying. After waiting for what felt like too long, I knocked again and called out. The man's voice came from another room, asking me to step into the kitchen. I hesitated, remembering my boss's advice not to enter customers' houses. I asked him to repeat himself, and he did, in the same monotone voice. Reluctantly, I stepped inside. The floor creaked under my feet as if it might collapse at any moment. As I moved closer to the kitchen, I noticed someone standing at the end of a hallway. The person was slowly dancing, but it wasn't a normal dance. They were touching themselves in a strange way, which felt deeply disturbing. I quickly looked away and saw the man peeking around the corner of the kitchen, only showing part of his face. His creepy smile sent chills down my spine. I asked again if he had the cash, but instead of answering, he began giggling. The laughter was unnaturally deep and soft, yet unsettling. Suddenly, he called out, "Randall," in a loud, commanding voice. That was enough for me. I turned around and headed back toward the front door. Just as I was about to leave, I glanced down the hallway and saw the man who had been dancing now just standing there, staring at me. I rushed to my car, still holding the pizzas, and got inside as fast as I could. As I backed up, I noticed the front door was wide open again, but I didn't stick around to see who or what was coming out. I sped back to the pizzeria and called my boss to explain what happened. He wasn't upset, but everyone laughed at the story. It may sound funny when I retell it, but at the moment, it was one of the most disturbing experiences I've ever had. I never entered anyone's house while delivering pizzas again after that. Even today, I sometimes dream about that man's face peeking around the corner. I used to be a food delivery driver. It was a tough way to make ends meet, but the night shift paid more, so I often delivered late at night. This night was like any other. I was on my way to deliver an order to a house in a remote area. The road leading there was dark, with no street lights, and the houses were sparsely scattered. As I turned onto a narrow side road, I saw the house where the delivery was supposed to go, completely engulfed in darkness. I parked my car, leaving the headlights on, and took out my phone to double-check the address. The house looked abandoned, with overgrown grass and no sign of life. I messaged the customer, asking them to confirm if I was at the right place. Almost immediately, I received a response. "Yes, you're at the right house. Just leave it at the door." Feeling uneasy, I walked towards the porch, using my phone's flashlight to light the way. Suddenly, I heard faint footsteps behind me. I spun around, heart pounding, but saw no one. I quickly dropped the food on the doorstep and sent a message, telling the customer I was leaving. I just wanted to get out of there. As I turned to head back to my car, I was suddenly shoved hard from the side. I stumbled, hitting the ground. My phone flew out of my hand. Before I could react, several masked figures appeared out of the darkness, surrounding me. They were wearing hoodies and masks, their faces completely hidden. My heart raced. This wasn't just about stealing food, this was something far worse. They grabbed me, pulled me to my feet, and dragged me into the house. Inside, it was just as dark as outside, the air thick with musty dampness. They forced me into a chair, tying me up while one of them rummaged through my pockets, taking everything: my phone, wallet, car keys. One of them asked in a low voice, "What should we do with him?" Before they could decide, we all heard it, the distant sound of sirens. The masked men froze, panic flashing in their eyes. "Cops," one of them hissed. In their moment of distraction, I managed to wriggle my hands free from the ropes. Without thinking, I bolted from the chair and rushed for the door. I burst through the front door, running as fast as I could. Behind me, I could hear them shouting, but I didn't stop. In the distance, I could see the flashing lights of the police cars approaching. I sprinted towards the lights, fear and adrenaline driving me forward. Reaching a nearby house, I banged on the door, breathless, begging for help. The homeowner let me inside just as the police arrived, surrounding the house where I had been held. I watched from a distance as the officers arrested the masked men. I sat by the police car, exhausted and shaken, staring at the villa that had almost become my tomb. The flashing lights illuminated the night, and for the first time, I felt safe again.